So basically what we're going to do now is open it up to the audience to ask questions of the panel.
All right, I'll start. My name's Steve Smith. I'm a father of one here in Gwinnett County, and I've been involved the last 2 years looking at various things going on in the county, but especially in the last 2 months, I was included on the Emergency Discipline Task Force, which the school system announced to try to kind of nip a few things in the bud. So I've got a few pieces of information here if anybody has any questions about that. Everybody knows Preston already.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Clint Dixon. I have the honor of serving in Senate District 45. Born and raised here in Gwinnett County. I've been in the Senate for 2 years. I was just named the Education Chairman in the Senate. Grateful to be here with y'all tonight and having this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Dixon. Well, good evening. My name is Mary K. Murphy, and I'm the District 3 School Board member here in Gwinnett County. Our superintendent has asked that we would have a town hall meeting in every one of the districts. This was to be done sometime in September through December. And we're very pleased that we were able to have 4 of those meetings. Tonight makes the 5th. I'd like to recognize one of our other school board members who's with us tonight, Ms. Karen Watkins from District 2. And I appreciate very much 2 representatives from our school system, Dr. Al Taylor. Dr. Taylor is Associate Superintendent for School Operations, and Mr. Jorge Gomez, who's the Executive Assistant to our Superintendent. Just briefly about my role here. I represent 3 schools in District 2. I share them with our school board member, Mr. Steve Knudsen. Those schools are Lanier Middle School, White Oak Elementary School, and Sycamore Elementary School. The schools that are included in District 2 are 32 in Berkmar, Central Gwinnett, Collins Hill, Lanier, Mill Creek, Mountain View, North Gwinnett, and the Seconder clusters, as well as Gibbs Center East, Gwinnett Online Campus, the International Transition Center offices, and Phoenix High School. I'll return the microphone to our moderator.
So does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I don't have a question so much as in listening to Preston's overview. I think where a lot of our problems lie, kids are out of control, and we know that. And this has happened a lot since COVID. I sound like a broken record because I've been talking about school violence since we were fighting the mask issue. And in January, in one of my talks to the board, the research that I did said the trajectory of violence in public schools across the nation would cap as high as they've ever seen in history. I was really hoping that wouldn't be true, but it is. And I think 2 things have happened that I've been watching closely, and so has Steve. We have 170 documented gangs in Atlanta and surrounding areas. And from what I understand, gangs recruit up to 2 times a year. So a lot of these fights that are, quote, gang related, I'm not saying they're not, and as you know, they're taking kids off campus because they don't want those charges of being on campus on school grounds. When they're recruiting, they're asked to do certain things, whether that's sell X amount of drugs, whether that is beat a child half to death, find a kid with a red coat, whatever their outline is. Maybe the schools can start, and I don't know what all goes into this because it's not something I've delved into deeply, but maybe schools can start identifying possibly gangs. I don't know, Karen, if that's something that the schools can do, but these gang-related incidents, we need to identify who the gangs are. The kids aren't going to talk, but if there's some way of identifying that, because I'm beginning to wonder if some of this extreme violence that is uptick just literally in the last month or so is gang initiation processes, because that does happen. The second part of what I wanted to say is you know, we have kids in here and we have good homes for our kids. You know, they have rules, they have boundaries, they have morals. A lot of kids don't have that. So how do you forcibly make a parent care, make a parent be involved? Some parents that want to be involved in care work 2 jobs, sometimes 3, and they can't be home with their kids. The kids are basically left to do what they do. And we can't go into someone's home and fix those issues. We know we can do it because we have, you know, good homes. But during COVID, and this is another thing I go back to, and I know people said, I'm tired of hearing the COVID excuse, but during COVID, school was a place where a lot of these kids sought refuge. For 8 hours a day, 7 hours a day, this was their safe space. Now, when they were at home for 3 weeks, they faced maybe Uncle Dave, who's a pedophile and shouldn't be in that house, ever. And they may have been molested. They have been physically, mentally, emotionally abused. They may have a dad that's an alcoholic that stands, you know, around for 8 hours a day, shredding them down to the ground, and now their anger is being taken out at school. Maybe an adult that looks like a parent, maybe a drug addict parent that says, you know what, just get out of my face, don't get arrested, I don't care if you do, just go. How do we address the emotional problem? Because the emotional uptick just didn't suddenly crawl out of the woodwork. It has come out of COVID when kids were home for 3 to 4 weeks. Some of these kids live in weekly hotels. Some of them live in cars. Some of them are foster homes. And I think as collectively, we think everybody has this beaver cleaver home, and they don't. They have been abused. So what do we do from maybe a school standpoint and a community standpoint that we help these kids emotionally, because this isn't going to go away. Trauma doesn't go away. It comes out either the kids retreat and they're silent, or they act out in violence. So from a school standpoint, how far do you walk into somebody's home life or children's life and say, how can we help you? These kids are shattered. I mean, they're shattered, and my heart breaks for them. And this uptick of violence, I think it's twofold. I think it's trauma, and I think it is gang initiations. That was a lot, but it's
Okay,
not
so,
an easy fix.
you know, you're right, and that's a lot to unpack, and obviously I'm not a school professional, I'm a parent, and I'm a citizen, so I share a lot of the same issues and concerns that you do with this. What I've noticed over the last year and a half in looking at this is there seems to be 2 very different camps when it comes to Gwinnett County Public Schools and the parents. The current leadership has decided to evolve a process of what they call social emotional learning, trauma-informed practices, where they're talking about what you're saying with the emotional stuff. And that's fine. I agree with you. There are issues like that that need to be looked at. The other side, and you've got a former police officer here, you've got somebody who has grown up in a very disciplined, strict household. There needs to be immediate discipline when it comes to incidents at the school. Because what seems to have occurred is that because of the last 2 years of COVID, and like you said, things have changed, these issues are now coming into our schools, and with the new approach of being more of a let's figure out what's going on here and heal that, we're not putting as much immediate discipline down. And so, in my opinion, there needs to be strict and immediate action for actions in the schools. And then we can also do what the board and Dr. Watts wants, which is find out the reason why. Now, we can do both, but we can't skip either one. And I think too much of what's happened in the last year and a half to 2 years is we're skipping the immediate punitive part.
Absolutely.
For the sake of the COVID excuse. And while it's not an excuse, we have got to move past it if we are going to make any progress. I understand there was emotional damage that was done and trauma that was done because of the pandemic. However, we cannot keep using that as an excuse to let the current actions keep going forward. So if we can come to some sort of realization, in my opinion, that swift, immediate justice and action is taken for these punitive actions, and then also get into counseling and get into, okay, you've been punished, now let's look at why. Something that I had addressed with somebody else before would be very similar to a pretrial diversion program. You brought weed to school, you're out for 10 days. That's it, no drugs on campus. We have signs that say no. So you're out for 10 days. When you come back, we have a counselor, we get you into an anti-drug program. If You stay clean for a year. You don't have any other discipline actions. We knock this off your transcript. We take it down, just like a pretrial diversion would for a DUI. There are ways we can make this not a long-term punishment for these kids, but they still get an immediate punishment for that action so it doesn't reoccur. Today at Shiloh, there was a gun. A couple of weeks ago at Shiloh, some Shiloh kids left, drove to South Gwinnett, pulled a kid off the campus, beat him half to death, dumped him in the road. They had to call an ambulance and hospitalize the kid. Why are kids walking off of one campus, driving to another, pulling them out, beating them? Could it have been gang related? That's what a parent told me, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe they're just bad kids. Maybe they've got issues. Let's find out that issue after they're punished for what they did. Let's not sit down and try to figure out that issue in lieu of punishment. That's just my opinion, but I think there can be an approach that goes together as opposed to it having to be one or the other. That's just my opinion.
Along with that, the disciplinary policies, of course, we know must change. They have to change. They have to have immediate consequences, just like what Steve said. It has to be the case. You know, I'm a veteran also, and I remember vividly Navy boot camp. You want to know why I remember vividly Navy boot camp? Because it was a semi-traumatic experience. But they break you down to build you up and give you immediate discipline and consequences when you step out of line. And that's what produces good sailors, good soldiers, good airmen, good Marines. And that's a lot of that is what these youth need. They actually crave it for it. They just don't know how to discipline themselves. They're looking for a way to experience discipline so they can discipline themselves.
That's right.
They can learn self-discipline. But of course, all the policy changes, they don't really mean a thing unless you have a way to enforce them.
Yep.
It's just like I was saying before, a law is only as good as it can be enforced. So we need more SROs in the schools. We need teachers to pay more attention. We need to empower the teachers and the administrators to be able to affect these consequences in a timely fashion and in a meaningful way. And so that's the only suggestion I can make in this instance is that, yes, we've had 2 years of COVID pandemic. There's a lot of emotional baggage that goes along with that, but that's no longer an excuse. It can't be an excuse anymore. They need those immediate consequences, stamp that out and say, hey, cut that off. We're moving forward. This is what we're doing now.
Amen.
I think these two fine gentlemen covered it pretty well, but just from the state standpoint, we have the state of the state tomorrow where the governor will be laying out his legislative priorities. Don't want to steal his thunder, but I believe in that address. I would be shocked if something with the SROs is not, the additional funding doesn't come from the state. Like I said, we'll tune in tomorrow, but I believe that will be one of his priorities is funding from the state to help protect kids in the schools. But I don't know all the details yet.
Thank you, Senator Dixon. Well, I wonder if others of you have comments.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lois, you shared with us the reason for bringing the group together tonight was to hear what District 2 has to say about what is going on in the Gwinnett County Public Schools. So are others of you wanting to make a contribution or ask a question or clarify anything?
Thank you, Dr.
Would you go to, I believe the microphones work, is that right, sir?
Microphones are working. I can bring them like I'm Oprah. Thank you. My name is Frances Davis. I'm a retired associate superintendent for human resources and talent management with the district. And I understand the two sides, Steve, that you just mentioned when it comes to children and the discipline. But here's one thing I do want us to keep in mind. Our teachers are tired. There was television clip on it last night. It's a national problem to find good qualified teachers. because the teacher's plate has now turned to a platter. And we're putting everything on that platter. I was really happy to hear Senator Dixon about the additional allotment or download for possible additional SROs. Folks, the teachers can't do everything we're asking them to do. If you have 30 kids in a classroom, and let's say you have 4 in that classroom that has, they've been suspended or they've been expelled for whatever, and now they're coming back in. The expulsions probably happened the year before, so the teacher who really knew about that expulsion, that teacher is in a different grade, and now that kid is coming into that teacher's room, and that teacher probably doesn't have a clue about that expulsion. When is that teacher, that one teacher, when is she supposed to have time to provide restorative practices to those kids? We push for bell-to-bell instruction in Gwinnett County Public School. When is she supposed to have time to do that? When is she going to work one-on-one? And that's what it takes. If I've just come back from a fight where I've been out 15 days, I don't want her to talk to me in front of all of you. I want her to talk to me one-on-one so that she can really get to the heart of why that even happened in the first place. My question is, what time do the teachers have to do that? Secondly, once they've done that, then what? If by some way teachers can do that, then what is the teacher to do with that information, that follow-up, and how do they follow it up? When are they talking to parents? So they got to talk to parents about these 4 kids. They also got to go and talk about their teaching and learning, where they are in their academics. Folks, we cannot afford to put that burden on our teachers. And if we do, it will hurt us immediately, not in the long run, immediately. When you pull a teacher away from teaching, that's why teachers are leaving public education. It's too much. With all the paperwork, all the assessments they have to do, they're working with 30 individual children. They're trying to meet the needs of every child, because you're like me. You don't care about anybody but Cooper. That's the way we are. I'm here to talk about my child. Well, that teacher has to be the my child for all 30 of those children, folks. And if we're going to do all the additional restorative pieces that we say we want to do, all the emotional pieces that we say we want to do, if we want to help these kids that's coming from our homes, and I just want to remind you, those are not those homes, those are our homes, folks. You don't have to be in an extended stay to get drugs and overdoses. That's in our homes. Some of the most affluent homes are the homes we have drug problems with, especially the ones that have really, really made an impact on our children across the United States. So I don't like to say those people, I like to say our homes. Teachers can't be the mother and the father. Somebody else has got to do that. Whether it's the SROs, and our SROs are trained to do intervention, counseling, well, probably not counseling, but they do workshops with kids. They talk to kids throughout the day. They have small groups. They do more than just beat and file cops. We try from day one not to hire a beat and file cop, because that's not what we want in our school. We want somebody that was going to really work with our kids, to give the kids insight on what it's like if you choose this path to go down. So teachers cannot do anymore. And if we keep pushing the issue, we are going to be homeschooling in our homes. Teachers will not, I guarantee you, Gwinnett County will not open school this year fully staffed. And no other school in the metro area will do it too. The teachers are not out there. The report that we just sat through the last board meeting with Alma, there's nothing in that report that was brand new. We spent over an hour in the work session for that. Nothing in that report is new. We're going to recruit outside the metro area in Atlanta. Folks, Gwinnett has been going all over the country for years recruiting teachers. I was just telling somebody in the back, I myself went to India 7 times recruiting math and science teachers. This was years ago. You can't recruit what's not in our colleges and universities, folks. You can't recruit what our colleges and universities are not producing. There's a greater problem. What we're doing now is stealing teachers from one county to the other one. They come to Gwinnett, they leave Gwinnett, they go to Cobb, they leave Cobb, they go to Hall, and they move out of Gwinnett to go to areas that are supposed to be unlike Gwinnett, Walden, that have a lower enrollment. Right now, Gwinnett County Public Schools is 82.3% children of color. There's not a school in Gwinnett County that's predominantly white anymore. There is one. That's Simpson Elementary. We don't see that in our communities because we look at what we see. And we think that there's still predominantly white schools in Gwinnett. There's not. We have to teach the kids that we have in Gwinnett. And we've got to remember our teachers. Folks, if we what do you think about going to McDonald's and buying some fried chicken? McDonald's is supposed to sell what? Hamburgers and what?
French fries.
You got it, French fries. Folks, you know, the schools can't be all of this stuff for everybody. Your schools have got to be the educational institution in your community. We can't be all this other stuff. You can't hire enough counselors. Our schools are, how many kids are in second year high school? Dr. Taylor? Right around 2,000. And you probably got 3 counselors. Go figure. That's what the allotment is. Folks, all I'm saying is what we're asking of folks to do, we don't have the manpower to do it. I like all of your stuff, but I saw that command center, and it was 9 people in that command center. We don't have 9 people. Folks, all I'm saying is that don't forget our core business, what our core business is about, and it's not discipline. If we can get our teachers refocused to engage on teaching and learning, then we can capture our students and keep our students from doing some of the things that they're doing, notwithstanding the impact that we've had with COVID. But that's like a crutch. We got to take it off, like Steve said, and let it go. It's gone. That's why everybody here got a man something tonight. In our minds, it's gone. We'll leave it behind us. Let's move forward. We've got to do some different things now in public education. And the first thing we got to do is make it safe. But you can't turn our schools into a prison either. Okay? We can't turn our schools into a prison. The only thing I'm asking is that, to our panel, to our board members, Ms. Watkins, Dr. Murphy, other people that are in here, Senator Dixon, I know that local control is what our governor wants. And certainly we don't want to take control of our schools. We want local control. We don't want the state to come in and take our schools. However, this community has got to understand what we need to do in our schools and how we need to support our schools and our budget to put, and if we can reduce class sizes. I've never been a proponent of class sizes. Because of the research I know. I could be talking to 1,000 people in here right now. It wouldn't make me a bit of difference, but everybody ain't Francis either. you know? So I think that we gotta make sure that we don't make our school everything for everybody. Those kids that come to our schools, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to walk in our schools. And our rules need to be tough, we need to have standards, and we need to go by those standards. We don't need to back up because a child is white, black, blue, or green. Hold kids to a standard. And don't put anything else on our teachers' plate. Nothing. Let them teach. Get somebody else to do the emotional, social, bring them down front, let them meet Jesus. I mean, I'm serious. The teachers just can't do it, folks. And I don't know when you say we need this and the teachers need to do this, the teachers need to teach. And love on their children while they teach. And I'm saying that because I am a teacher. I still teach. But you can't put all of that. I didn't mean to say all that. But y'all, that's just real close to my heart, simply because I know what's going to happen in the fall and how hard it's going to be. And the more disturbance we have in Gwinnett County, the more we're in the media, the more we're in national media, the less teachers we're going to have knocking at our doors. I've seen the days we had our job fair at Gwinnett, at the Civic Center, at the Gaslight District. We would have sometimes over 10,000 people to come through there in a day, begging for a job in Gwinnett. Those days are not here. We got to do some different things, folks, and we got to take care of teachers. We need to focus on our teachers and our principals in these buildings and giving them the support that they need. Adding more assistant principals and not taking them away. Teacher need to push a button. When you got a 5-year-old killing, a 2-year-old news the other day shooting a gun. Folks, that ain't somebody else's house, that's our house. And the reason I say it's our house because you're the neighbor, you're my neighbor. And your kids are sitting in the rooms with these kids. Those are our kids, and we gotta do something about it, but we cannot bite off. I was talking to my neighbor, Mary Beth, a few minutes ago about wraparound services from our community. Folks, we need to be getting our community agencies involved in this process with these kids to do more for children outside of Gwinnett. So when they leave our schools, they can go to counseling. It's free. We can, there are a whole lot of services in Gwinnett that our kids don't know about, our parents don't know about. But Gwinnett has got to keep the main thing. That's all I'm saying. Thank you. I didn't say all this. Mike.
If I could add on to what Dr. Davis said, because she actually reminded me of a certain point. Again, as a parent, I'm not an employee, I'm not a board member, but the system has a $2.8 billion budget, and that is a large pot of money for outside groups, special interest groups, educational companies, educational consultants to all want to try to get a piece of. And from what I've seen the last couple of years, there have been some outside special interest groups that have decided to basically set up camp inside GCPS. There was a big news article about how we had more kids sent to alternative schools than 4 other counties in the city of Atlanta combined. And an organization named Gwinnett Stop made a giant stink about it, how it was disproportionate, and it was just an example of us going over the top on some of these kids. Well, if anybody took statistics in high school or college, you know that you can make numbers say whatever you want them to say if you know how to present it. And I don't want to jump on Jeff Allen's train. He'll present this at the February board meeting. If you look at some other data, Gwinnett was at the bottom of the barrel when it came to expulsions, which meant that we took the problem kids, and rather than kicking them out onto the street, which has a much higher rate of sending these kids to prison, as they say, the school to prison pipeline, we put them in alternative schools, and we found ways to keep them in schools and to keep getting them that free and fair education that everybody says is a right. Firearms are a constitutional right, but if you commit a crime, you lose your right to own them. If you commit crimes in our schools, you lose your right to that free and fair education. It is a privilege, as Dr. Davis said, to be part of Gwinnett County schools. You're guaranteed that right to start, but if you mess it up, you shouldn't necessarily be guaranteed to keep it. There are 178,000 students, I think, after withdrawals right now. Maybe 2% of the problem. What are we doing for the other 98% that aren't the problem, that are there daily to learn, to be safe? As she said, if we don't take this back to education and safety and take those outside interests and put them back outside where they belong, we're going to continue to have these problems. I see one of our board members in the back doesn't necessarily agree with what I'm saying based on the face she's making, but since this is an unofficial meeting, I can call her out on it. We're frustrated as parents, we're frustrated as teachers because the teachers are calling the parents saying that we can't talk about it because of our bosses. People are fed up, and if y'all are listening and engaging like you're saying, we're giving you the information, so if you're not processing it, I can't help you. But there's a whole lot of talking going on and not a lot actually being said. This discipline policy was paused. It wasn't scrapped, it was paused. And it was paused after a child was killed. We had been yelling for a while about how this was a problem, but until that little boy in Norcross was killed, leaving school campus, then we had a code red meeting. Then we had an emergency discipline task force. Then we paused it, but we didn't pause it. We still got it at South Gwinnett and Shiloh as a pilot program. And it's coming back in the fall. After we're done with this emergency discipline task force, we're supposed to be redoing JCDI. But that doesn't mean it's going away. It's just taking a 6-month break for the heat to die down. If we don't actually scrap this and redo the whole thing, you're going to be sitting in the same spot next August. Except there'll be less teachers here to watch your kids. There'll be less kids here because families will continue to leave. As a real estate agent, I've watched it happen for the last year and a half. This is going down a slippery slope quickly. You're at a point where we can go left or go right, and if we don't fix this soon, there's going to be nothing left to fix. And it's really as simple as that. Ma'am, I know you had raised your hand before Dr. Davis.
Yeah, he's gonna go first.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Robert. I actually teach at Shiloh. I want to thank you guys for hosting the meeting. It is encouraging to see the community support, but I do welcome any one of you in my classroom any day. Just come on down to Shiloh. You can come in and see what's going on. Shiloh has a bad rap, but it's actually a great school. I love my kids. I love my administrators in the local, but we are handcuffed. We can't discipline kids the way we need to discipline. You had mentioned, Preston, all these great ideas of cameras. The cameras all work. There are cameras in front of the bathrooms that see kids coming in and out. When there is an issue, a kid's face might go around the entire school, faculty, and they are identified within a minute. So we find those students very quickly. It's not an issue. The issue is there's been 3 administrators that have not been replaced since I've been there, and this is my 3rd year. Those administrator duties have been spread out among the other administrators, so my boss is now overworked, can't do discipline on the students that need discipline. There are 2 administrators doing discipline for 2,400 students. So is that fair? 2,400 students, and this is a small high school, so Mill Creek's 4,500 kids. Unfortunately, they need help. So yes, teachers are overworked, but so are the administrators. The administrators are spending all day working, chasing kids. One thing that would work really well though is if you just put an alarm on a door, on the side door, when it opens up, that would actually be pretty helpful. And I think that's pretty simple to do. So you put an alarm on the side door when it opens up, that would actually stop intruders from coming into the school because there's nothing stopping a student from going to the side door to open it up to let somebody in. That's how they get Uber Eats and everything else in the school. I know, it's not shocking. The other thing is kids will try to see how far they can push the boundary. That's natural. We do it as adults. We all speed. We all go 9 over the speed limit, sometimes 14. Yes, we do it down Sugarloaf Extension every day. So we are going to push the boundaries. The kids push the boundaries. The kids have been pushing the boundaries for 4 months. Where's the line in the sand? The kids have pushed my boundaries every single day. They push my boundaries about seating charts. They push them about tardies, push them about AWOLs. I'm very good at catching them. I love them, but I'm going to catch them and I'm going to discipline them, call the parents. But teachers are burned out. They're tired. They're tired of dealing with it. When you come up with level 1, level 2 discipline, I'm sorry, we're past level 1, level 2 discipline. It didn't reset for us second semester. It's been going on since first semester. And telling me that it resets now, and the kids have been doing it all year, that's not fair. The administrators need help. Can we try to do something about that? Is that possible, panel?
Okay, so one thing, and you kind of, I brought this up to Mary Kay before. I haven't brought it up to Karen because we haven't talked, but I even brought it up to Everton before he left, and I brought it up to Calvin. There are other state schools where there are dads on duty programs, active parent programs, volunteer programs. You could go down to the local VFW and find a bunch of retired military personnel who have nothing better to do than drink coffee at the local diner. And when I presented this to Everton a year and a half ago, I don't know if you need to speak to a lawyer. I don't know if you need to speak to your insurance company, if it needs licensing and bonding and training. But there is nothing, in my opinion, that would stop citizen parent volunteers from helping patrol these halls at Shiloh and at South and at Mill Creek. Because even a dedicated SRO at every school, one cop for 4,000 kids isn't going to cut it. There's plenty of stairwells and bathrooms and things going on all day. But there are plenty of parents who would be more than willing to volunteer time to help with some of these issues. Because you are burnt out as a teacher. You're watching this all day. You've got kids cutting out of your class. They're not supposed to be gone, but you're not really able to do anything about it. If the community can get more involved, if the school system will let the community get more involved, a lot of this could help die down. But every time I bring it up, everybody who's employed by the school system seems to say, let me get back to you on that. It's been October 2021 and counting, so if somebody could get back to me on that, that'd be great. But as far as helping the administrators and teachers, that's probably a Mary Kay or a Karen Watkins question. I can't really answer that.
Steve, with respect, they did hire an additional hall monitor. So we actually have 3 hall monitors, 2 SROs, and the kids still run around the building. It's not a matter of hiring more people, finding volunteers to patrol the hallways. There's got to be a consequence. And in order to do consequence, like for instance, filled out an AWOL referral 2 weeks ago, hasn't been heard. On multiple students, not just one. Okay, it's going on. The problem is you put all this work now back on the administrators who are now down 3 people that don't have time to hear these people to help these students get out.
Because you are on a JCDA pilot program.
The pilot program is baloney. We've been doing those practices for years at Shiloh. It's not anything new.
So it's just talk. We've been talking about it. And like Dr. Davis said, it's very simple. Education for the children and the safety of the children and the teachers. But the board and the superintendent and a bunch of other his fellow friends and everybody, they're very, very busy with too many other stuff. They're really not. You guys are fools to think they're worried about your children's future and education. They are not. I have to tell you honestly, they are not. Because they come and talk in front of you. They say everything when you have the board meeting. But if they're really, really worried about it, we should have seen a solution by now. Instead of forcing that and starting this, doing all kind of pilot, doing that and this, it's very simple. Retraining the teachers, taking care of the teachers. The other day, my son who is in the high school came to me and he was very sad. I said, what happened? He's like, I saw my middle school teacher at Costco and I talked to her for almost 30, 40 minutes and she's leaving. One of my best teachers that I always loved. And I thought that my brother is going to get her in the middle school. A math teacher, she said, she's done. She's leaving. And he was very upset. I'm not blaming anybody. Board members are busy, they have other stuff. Superintendent is getting a big paycheck. We as people who live in Gwinnett County should know one thing. Somebody who came from some other state, once his job is done, he is going to leave. We are going to live in this county. My children are going to keep going to our high schools and our elementary schools, or your grandchildren. The board members might lose your position next year. You are still going to live in this county. So I think it's time for us just too much talk. We all talk, too much talk in every single meeting. Nothing is happening. So I was actually going to, I'm so glad that Senator Dixon he's appointed as the chair of the Youth and Education. I have a question for you. That's what I was going to ask you. As a senator, District 2, this district it's under you. What you have been seeing through news or from your people or people like us, parents, why can't the legislatures, the local legislatures come together? Why can't you guys talk about it? Why can't you meet with these local school board members or just share your ideas on how to fix this instead of just posting that, post them. The teacher in Shiloh said that they have this. I just got a video, Peachtree Ridge High School, kids just burn up toilet tissues. The toilet is burnt. It's too much. I'm frustrated. I have 2 boys. I'm at the point that my oldest is going to finish high school in 1 or 2 years. I have a second one coming up. I came from a third world country for a better education. I'm a legal immigrant. I have to make sure that I'm not, I came as a legal immigrant. I want them to have a better education. What I've been experiencing, my family's been experiencing, but it's feel like it's not there anymore. I'm just saying it with a really, really broken heart. I feel like crying when I think about my child's future. We have 2 board members, 2 officials from the superintendent's office. Please give us a solution. Like Dr. David said, please give us a solution. Please retain these great teachers. Go to that guy's classroom one day. Please. Tired of the talk.
Thank you so much for your comments, and I would dare to guess that most, if not everybody in this room, has your same frustrations. As far as at the state level, you do hear, when you're dealing with school system or counties, local control. Our governor does believe heavily in local control. Not necessarily, he believes in it, as a policy, but also our state constitution lays that out, especially dealing with the school systems that I guess it was back in the 40s when they decided that, the county political subdivision was the most appropriate subdivision to, as far as starting your school systems. And from that, the local control was set up in the Constitution. So there are things that we can do, I can do as a legislator, but the control and the operation of the school system is at the local level. And I'm excited that we are putting this in dealing with the safety issues in our schools, and it's coming to the forefront. I know everybody's frustrated, but if you can remember a few years ago, and I'm a positive person by nature, so I just want to lighten things up a little bit, but as a society, typically, as we bring issues to the forefront, and we've got this much focus on school safety, protecting students, protecting teachers, I believe we're going to move the needle a long ways in a short time. Because if you look back not long ago when graduation rates, that used to be the big topic in Georgia, and trying to bring those graduation rates up. Well, our state school can't even talk, sorry, I've been up since 4 a.m. It's been quite a long day, but our state school superintendent last week on appropriations, he came to give his presentation to us, and he talked about graduation rates. And so afterwards I joked with him, because all of our graduation rates had jumped dramatically, and we're doing great with state. Another issue that we're going to have to deal with that will be a priority is literacy issues, and it's a statewide issue. But my whole point to it is that, once we bring something to the forefront, we start having some solutions come up, I think our brighter days are ahead of us. We just got to keep moving forward with some of these issues. And as far as the state and where the state is going to come in to help from the state level is, like I said, we'll hear from the governor tomorrow. He's going to lay out his priorities for this legislative session. SROs are going to be one of them. School safety is at the top of his priority. And I can say that, with confidence with the governor and the legislature, that you're going to see a lot of legislation, meaningful legislation, that's going to help. It's going to help promote and help these local school boards, get back in line and help protect the kids and empower the students and the parents.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Dixon. Well, sir, I want to thank you very much for the question that you raised and the topics that you put on the table. The best way that I think I can answer your question is to tell you what I've worked very hard to do as one board member since July. In July, our superintendent, a new superintendent who came to Gwinnett County Public Schools in July of 2021, proposed to us that we would have a different discipline policy than we have now. And when you heard Dr. Davis talk about the changes that have taken place in our student body over recent years, our superintendent, I'm sure, had good reason for suggesting that we might look at another way, not to not discipline students, but to understand what was going on with students that caused them to have the behavior that they exhibited. I believed that the superintendent's plan was a good one, and I voted for it. 5 of us voted for it. But as I heard the teacher talk just a little bit ago, I began to hear teachers and principals talk as well. And what had been so positive to me in July began to be a very, very negative implication of what was intended. Teachers could no longer discipline for their classroom. Teachers had to work with principals to work for the office discipline. And teachers and principals could not work alone without cluster superintendents to approve. And I concluded that what was happening was students were noticing. Certainly we as school board members were noticing, because we no longer got the appeals or the expulsions that would come our way. And so in November of this year, at our school board meeting, I made the statement that I rescinded my vote to support the school discipline code because of the reasons that I've just mentioned to you. In my opinion, something very positive happened in December. Our superintendent, I don't say he did it because of me. I'm certain there was evidence all around the county with the visits that he makes and the people he interacts with. In December, our superintendent decided to call for a mid-course correction. He changed the time frame for the discipline code to be implemented to out as far as 2024-25. One of my greatest complaints was that there was too much for the teachers and the principals to do at one time, too many new things. Our superintendent, I believe, listened to that. He also established a task force of 100 community members, and Mr. Smith was a part of it. Many others, and Dr. Davis was a part of it, certainly Dr. Taylor and Mr. Gomez and Mrs. Watkins. We were all invited to be a part of the task force to understand better what the discipline code was meant to be. It changed, for example, from 3 levels of importance to 5. I won't go into the details of those, but we had an opportunity to learn for ourselves how we would apply that. Now, to me, the proof is in the pudding. You put it another way, talk, talk, talk. Where's the action? I'm going to be watching very carefully as our superintendent and our board work to see how is this mid-course correction dealing with problems that we noted. The major problems were the eruption of the students who no longer felt the constriction of being disciplined for actions they knew some of them were quite criminal, and they've been charged with criminal actions because of what they did in our county school restrooms. I appreciate very much what I'm listening to as you've shared your views, and as I look at your faces. You're feeling, I believe, the same thing that I began feeling from July to November. There's got to be a change. And thank you for holding us accountable. You're quite right, we'll be coming up for election as sure as the sun sets and as sure as the moon begins to shine. We'll come up for election, and then how will we feel about how did we handle our time here as your stewards and as your representatives? I, for one, take this responsibility very seriously. We're the largest school system in the state of Georgia. We have 181,185 students. We have a budget of $2.8 billion. We are a school system not only accountable to the county of Gwinnett, but to the state of Georgia. As I sit here with Senator Dixon, he represents more than half of the money that comes to Gwinnett County to support our students. So we've got a very big responsibility to the state of Georgia. Most especially, we have a great responsibility to those people who put their children in our public schools and expect them to be safe. Those are you sitting here tonight who expect them to be safe and who expect them to get the best public education possible. So I appreciate what I'm hearing you say. Mrs. Lewis, it was very worth my time driving over here from District 3 to hear what you're saying. We've heard it in other county districts. My hope and prayer is that together we can find a way out of this. And as your school board member from District 3, I'm very dedicated to doing this. I don't know if you want to hear this from me, but this is my 27th year to work.
I appreciate it.
And all I can say is for 24 years, we did some very, very good work. And we had some major changes that came in year 25, 26, and now 27. And it's very much on my mind to understand those changes and to deal with them. Thank you very much for listening to what I've had to say.
I did have a question for the teacher from Shiloh. Sorry, sir, I didn't catch your name.
Robert.
Robert, was wondering, I know you mentioned you were down 2 administrators.
3.
3. Is that your biggest issue, you think, dealing with some of the discipline issues in the school?
I mean, to me, you can't handle discipline if you don't have enough people processing the paperwork. For instance, I would say the 9th grade assistant principal probably, from what he's told me, he processes roughly 3,000 referrals in a year. This is just 9th grade.
Wow.
And so you need assistant principals out there to manage the discipline flow. When you split the departments and you have 2 departments under 1 assistant principal, I haven't really seen my boss much this year. And when I do, it's because she's running down the hallway. Go handle an issue.
Thank you.
So it's not that they were down 3, we lost 3 and they never were replaced.
And are you seeing that at other schools?
I'm not sure, I can only speak for my schools.
Okay.
I will answer to Preston's suggestion to put doors on bathrooms. Preston, it's a great idea. The problem is if I put my key card on the bathroom, I can then let 10 of my friends in and it all just say my name. Then the other issue is teachers like me who have a classroom right outside the bathroom, I cannot hear what's going on. So usually when I do hear what's going on, I do go in the bathroom. Are teachers in the hallways during class changes? Yes. I am told every single day I need to be in the hallway to monitor children in case something breaks out. I am out there for the first 20 minutes of the day.
Senator Dix, I want to answer your question. The teacher, Robinson, who couldn't. This year in August, this superintendent, Dr. Watts, decided that they would reduce the allotment for school administrators across the district. the allotment was reduced. They had some assistant principals were being split to travel from school to school. They had maybe 2 schools they was traveling from. And of course, the consistency and the efficiency of having somebody in a school all day just went to pieces when you've got people traveling and trying to remember 3,000 days over here, 1,500 over here. So after, I guess he saw that that didn't work, in that same month, with part of this course correction, he went back and said, okay, if you have available points, you can go ahead and hire administrators. Now that's in December. You're going to hire assistant principals in December, and where are they supposed to come from? They come out of your classroom. So if you move a person that's in your classroom that's ready to be assistant principal into assistant principal role, now in December you got to find a teacher to replace that teacher with. So the schools were really caught kind of in a mess when they took the allotments in August, came back and put some back out there in mid-year, but it's the worst time of the year to try to find APs, even though we have a program that you have APs in, but these people are current teachers. And so it's like a domino effect. So it happened at Shiloh along with other schools across the district is the answer to your question.
And then the other
You
issue.
think a lot of those positions will be filled probably by the next school year? Is that what you think, once everything resets in the
Right
summer?
now, the schools don't have their allotments. They have not been given their allotments. So they are sitting in a position now because there were 800 positions put out in August, July, August, for schools to hire additional teachers with the understanding that that would reduce the class size. But they knew when they put them out there that they wouldn't find 800 teachers at that juncture of the year. So it was really kind of underhanded the way they did that to make teachers think that they were going to get extra help when there were no teachers available. So now the principals are wondering, okay, so we don't have our allotments going forward to know what we need to do for next year. And right now, as we sit here, they do not have their allotments unless they went out today. And also, what they don't have, they don't know if those points that they use that were supposed to be above their allotment, if those points are going to be taken back or if they're going to be added in. And I guarantee you, if we had hired 800 teachers in the fall, we'd have a broke budget. Because if you take teachers paid out of the emergency fund, go figure, you're going to give teachers $1,000 just to hush them down, quiet them down. You know, you take 30% off, teacher has $700. It didn't even faze them. But that was just another point. But that money came out of the emergency fund.
Of the county's budget?
Gwinnett County Public Schools. And the chief financial officer reported in the last board meeting that the local funds were not coming in as we had projected, and rightfully so with everything happening at this point. So all I'm saying is that when you start cutting the allotment of the people who manage discipline and will get these referrals, like he's saying there are 2-3 people down, she thought Dr. Dollars probably got cut. And those people were distributed elsewhere. And that's a major problem with the discipline. You don't have boots on the ground.
Did they lose their jobs or just were they moved?
They didn't lose their jobs. They moved them around the district where there was schools that had allotments to fill. Whereas Shemay didn't. Well, Mill Creek may could have picked that person up. Or Mill Creek could have picked up half of that person. A young man at Lanier, he didn't lose his job. He just got split between Lanier and another school. So they were able to absorb it, but they didn't. They cut the allotments back and absorbed those people in schools that were earning that allotment. Right now, a school gets an allotment based on the student enrollment and the projection of students that will come new to that school. And that projection and that enrollment equals points. So a school will have 125 points. And it's always been left up to the local principal. As long as those areas that are required are covered, the principal had the autonomy to decide if I want to take this point and add a counselor or add an additional assistant principal. This year, that left the local control and went back to the superintendent's office, and they decided that they were going to cut the allotments for the administrators. And they were going to take those points and put them in their classroom.
And could we just roll that back and bring those people back in, or is that not?
They did that in December. In the big course correction, they realized that that was not working with the discipline. So they told those schools, if you have points still hanging out there, you can hire. But it's December, so you're going to pull those folks out the classroom that are wanting to be administrators and have the credentials to do it, but you've got a teacher spot that's left. So
that's where the amendment, because that's what I was asking, like you rolled it back, if all those people or most of them are still here, you roll it back and just put them back in their old positions?
They can go back into their old position, some of them can, and some of those schools, if they have the allotment. So it depends on if they got enough allotment, they could have used that allotment to hire teachers. When they told them, you got 2 points over here, you're overpowering administrators, so we're not going to let you hire administrators. So that principal could have taken those 2 points and hired teachers. So those people can't roll back because they don't have any funds. However, going forward, if they ever get an allotment for this year, which they probably will somewhere in February, which is late, and they say they're going to hire early, and our smart principals, regardless, and that's what I said, our local principals and our teachers are so valuable. Most of our principals are already interviewing for teachers, and the county has not even said, here's your budget, here's your allotment, because they know what they got to do in order to meet the needs in the fall. And so I would say that the allotments, if they stay like they are without the control, they will have administrators and they're going to be, they'll have the administrators. I feel sure about the administrators. I feel less confident about teachers. That's the issue. They'll have the administrators to go forward. But the teacher pool is very low.
And then one thing, the other thing I wanted to ask, on the SROs, one per school, if you had that, I know the elementary schools don't have that currently.
I'll have to defer that to Dr. Taylor.
Just wondering if that's enough. I know that's a loaded question, but.
You need, we have 2 in our high school, and it's maybe enough for us, but a school like Mill Creek, you need a lot more. I mean, you can look back to the incident at Meadow Creek. How many SROs did it take to break up the fight that was videotaped? I think 4 or 5 went after it, and they still couldn't break it up.
And it has a lot to do too with the layout of the building, how diversified that campus is, how old that campus is, the number of students that are there. Dr. Taylor, you might want to speak to that. The question was, would one SRO per school do?
I mean, certainly if we're going to get funding from the state, we'll take as many as possible. You know, the simplistic answer is, I don't think you can ever have enough of anything. The layouts of our building do create some challenges. Depending on when schools is built, of course, those that are more recently built, we're taking into account some of these safety features. You know, one thing I think is really important for us to just remember, and it really crystallized for me, maybe about 2 weeks ago, I visited a school and didn't check the calendar appropriately and didn't connect with the principal ahead of time, and they were in the middle of a lockdown drill. This wasn't a thing at one point in time. And, some of our buildings weren't built with the idea that there's going to be somebody getting a gun, entering a campus, and causing harm to students. There were certain spaces in our society that were just off limits. And I think we can all collectively agree that there are no safe spaces that are just off limits to that type of activity. So, the more that we can get, and, I've certainly taken a lot of notes and I wanted to follow up with some of the questions I had on some of the safety features that you mentioned. Well, there's not going to ever be, and we should never just create a false sense of of promise and hope that we're going to be able to cover everything, but we're pouring and we're willing to pour anything that we can to create and continue to create safe environments for students.
Dr. Taylor, I just have one question also for you. Is it the school's policy? Is it the Gwinnett County Public Schools policy to have an annual fiscal security assessment for each facility?
We do them, so there's a state requirement for school safety plans to be submitted on a yearly basis. We've actually implemented a process to have outside agencies coordinate and do audits. The audits are a little bit more comprehensive and take a little bit longer, so they're on, at least we're trying to get them down to a 2-year cycle. They're on a 3-year cycle that everybody goes through a full safety audit.
Would it be fair to say then that that information could be used to determine the student ratio to SRO, student SRO ratio per school? Because I mean, you have high schools that have a large student body, you'll have some that have a small student body, but then each high school has 2 SROs, whereas one might need more, one might not need as
No,
many.
and that's a fair question. I think the premise of the thought behind it was to, this was at one point where these type of incidences were only occurring in high schools when we looked at nationally, and of course now there's not even a level that's safe, which is for those who kind of asked why elementary schools have fewer. There was once upon a time where that was not something that was necessarily a space that we would have thought that this was going to be occurring. Right now the standard is just 2. But I certainly write down notes that we can maybe start considering student SRO ratios to factor in where additional funding, where additional positions are going to occur. I think goal number 1 though is moving towards ensuring at least every building has one full-time dedicated SRO from a priority perspective. If we're looking at priority, and then maybe we can kind of backfill and look at some of those ratios that you were referencing.
All right, thank you, Dr. Taylor. I appreciate that.
Can I say something?
Hey, so we're already over time. We got in a little late, so I'm sure they'll probably give us 10 more minutes. But this lady has been very patiently waiting to speak, so please somebody give her a microphone.
She has a microphone.
Perfect.
I kind of lost where I was going with my thought now. Good evening, everyone. Board member, panel, parents, teachers, staff, faculty. My name is Toyasha. I was invited to this, so I kind of came just to listen and hear, and as I've collected everyone's thoughts, I do have something to say. I'm a huge proponent of discipline, being that I'm a mother of 2. However, I don't think discipline in its strictness is the way that we are really going to course correct the behavior of our children. I think it's a collective. I heard people speak this evening, and I just want to really recap. This wonderful woman here spoke about the emotional issues and challenges that we're faced within our communities, within our homes, that a lot of us don't even think about because it's not our story. It's not what we experience. And so I get it. I get the frustration of the bad children and removing the bad apples so we don't spoil the bunch. But what happens is we give up hope. And what I'm hearing is let's punish, punish, punish. Let's be strict about it. Let's get to it real quick so we can correct this. But what I'm also hearing is that we have a lack of accountability. Not just accountability from our school board or administration, but our parents, our staff, and our teachers. And so my question is, as we sit here as a collective group, are there any working sessions where teachers can speak authentically and honestly and openly, where they're not at risk of losing their job or being ostracized or segregated, and parents can come in with love and not hate or opposition to really solving our issues, and staff and administration where we can have working sessions, because it's a lot, guys. One person can't do it. One school district can't do it. And I think I'm hearing blame. And we've got to be a part of a solution. and not a part of a problem. And what I'm hearing all tonight is problems, 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 problems. And it's very loud. It's echoing even. But I haven't heard one solution other than locked door locks, clear backpacks, which everybody can't afford to buy that. Some of our children don't even have running water. Is that your problem? Yes and no. Because we're a community. And we were all brought here to help and support one another through love. So how do we do that collectively? And my question is, from a school board perspective, are there opportunities for work sessions and working groups that can be highly promoted? Because if so, I don't know about them. I have not been as engaged and involved in all of the intricacies, that word, because I haven't had issues. Now, I've served in the local school council. I have been very participatory with my children's education, but I led from that space. I'm also a community member, a citizen, and I love the word that you said, service interest group. Was that your word?
Special interest group?
Special interest group, that's me. I have an empowerment program for girls. And so someone gave me a flyer and I came. I didn't know what to expect, but that was you, thank you. But I'm here to see how we can work together on this so that we can get the top 3 objectives to work together. And that's what I'm posing here today. Thank you.
Can I respond to that? I believe that and all that sounds great. I'm over here. All that sounds excellent, what you're talking about, but that sounds a lot like what's already going on with restorative practice. And somebody correct me if that's wrong. Like you said, I agree with, I host a podcast called The War Room in Gwinnett County. And I can't tell you how many teachers are afraid of losing their job. They're afraid to come to the table. And quite frankly, I don't know, I think the teacher is the best oversight because that's where the rubber meets the road at. Some of the administrators do a great job. But if these teachers are afraid to come forward, that's a problem. So, I would ask Senator Dixon, and maybe it's out of you guys' jurisdiction, if you would be willing to host a meeting with teachers to hear their concern. Because I'm telling you right now, they are not going to show up here. They're deathly afraid of that board right back there. And I don't know what's being said, but I get a ton of emails of teachers, and they're planning to leave. They're not going to stick around. And I know it's a lot of Georgia Bulldogs fans in here, and quite frankly, we run the school system, we run the football better than we do school. There's no way that a coach would come in here after Kirby Smart, make all these bad calls, lose all these games, and still have a job. After about the 4th or 5th game, he'd be given his marching orders. We're talking about safety. We're talking about community. I agree with you. But as a father of 4 daughters, ranging all the way from 6 to 21 years old, you can have all the coaches, you can have all the teachers, you can have all the rules. Kids understand authority. Strong authority. We don't need all these SROs and 25 SROs. You know what the problem is? These kids know that they're not getting in trouble. And the elephant in this room is, Dr. Davis said, these schools are 82% people of color. The narrative in the country is America's racist, okay? And nobody wants to be called racist. Nobody wants to go on the carpet for putting a black kid in trouble. It's all nonsense. Anthony Downer, Gwinnett Stop, and all this special interest groups, this stuff ought to be outlawed. And if you are an administrator in this county, you should be representing all children. You should not be allowing input from an interest group that's marginalizing other people. I look at the flyers from Gwinnett Stop. full of black folks. Where's the diversity? Where's the DEI? All nonsense. It's nonsense. That's what it is. I've seen it, I've followed it. I don't see any diversity on these flyers. I've been to a few meetings and I don't see the diversity there. I don't. And we need these teachers to be able to come forward, report the things that they're seeing, and not fear losing their job. That's the problem we're having, Clint. I'm telling you. I can show you my inbox on Facebook. All this information. I don't want to put my name out there. I'm afraid. People are going to keep leaving Gwinnett. I'm a business owner. I've been self-employed since 2003. Graduated from college. I played football all the way through college. 2 championship rings. I know what it takes to win. But all these bad calls and stuff like that, nobody would tolerate it. Not the University of Georgia. Quite frankly, some of these high schools wouldn't tolerate it. So we letting our kids get in danger, all to have a group hug. No, let's get these children in trouble that are causing problems. And I guarantee you this, you have more budget money to do stuff with other than having all these SROs. If you haven't seen the movie Lean On Me, you need to go and watch it. All it takes is one person, but it starts with this leadership. If these teachers do not have the backing, and they think they're going to lose their job, Gwinnett County is on its way out, and we need more oversight. These teachers need to be able to call somebody other than their superiors and not worry about if they're losing their job. That's the problem that we're having.
One thing I want to jump real quick, you're a senator and all, but and Karen and Mary Kay can both tell you this, the board did pass a policy at the tail end of last semester. There is an anti-retaliation policy for the educational staff. So in theory, there should not be any issue with the teacher speaking out and losing their job. Now that being said, and Antonio's a friend of mine, we talk about this stuff a lot. Just because there's a policy in place, they still don't necessarily feel that they can do so. I believe I actually told Al Taylor this. I would love to see you guys hire a citizen who basically gets an office at the ISC that teachers can come in between 8 and 3 p.m., say whatever they feel like confidentially to that person who is not beholden to GCPS, who can then aggregate that information and bring it to the board, Watts, whoever, but it's gonna have to be a neutral third party because these educators, the administrators, they do not feel safe speaking up. And it's because of the corporate structure you've put in place. Like they said, teachers have to report to here, have to go to a cluster super, have to go to here. Y'all put in kick stops so certain people can get let go and take the blame game. But it's always gonna go up a ladder. They feel if they speak out, they'll be the first one cut off. Now, to the lady in the back who just spoke and who spoke at the board meeting, I heard you at the board meeting that you run that pilot program and that you're not getting enough access to students. There are a lot of problems in this room, and I don't know how new you are to this party, but some of us have been doing this now for 2 years. There's a lot of frustration, and so you will hear anger, pain, whatever you want it to be. This can be approached with love. It can be approached as a harmonizing moment, but what will have to be removed from that equation are the bosses. You want to bring the teachers and the parents and people together as a community that we can all go meet somewhere in the gym and make sure that nobody above a principal level is allowed in the building, because you're not going to get honest feedback and community speak together if they think somebody who can affect their paycheck is in the room. I've proposed things, in fact, Ms. Watkins and I talked about it on the way in. Peer-to-peer tutoring cross-county. Get me a kid from Shiloh, get me a kid from Mill Creek, put them together. They might have 2 completely different lives, but they might learn something about each other and help each other out. You could get parents together, parents who are struggling and parents who aren't struggling. Again, different sides of the county. Have a mentorship with those parents to try to help. Hey, look, my kids are out of control. Well, my kids aren't. Let's sit down and see what you do, what I do. The system could literally set that up. Y'all can take these students and go, all right, I got a 4th grade son and he's in District 2. Let me roll the slot machine and find another 4th grader in District 4 and hand out the information. Go, here's your cross-county buddy. Go learn about each other. If y'all want to unify everybody, make the effort to unify us. And I'll tell you this, I'll tell you both this, if I hear the word disaggregated one more time, All disaggregated means is segregated. We're going to put everybody in these little tiny groups, and eventually one little group's going to feel real picked on. If you want to talk about unity and bringing everybody together, you keep cutting them down like that, that's where you're getting a lot of this going on now. Sorry, please, you were elected, please speak.
Hard to follow that. No, but I would welcome any type of meeting in any form where teachers or anyone felt safe. Would welcome that. I mean, education issues have become the biggest, it's become my only priority really as I've served in office for these short 2 years. But, I intend now as the chairman of education and youth to throw myself into it. We are going to be tackling literacy issues. We'll be inviting, every school district to come to the Capitol over the next few weeks to talk about issues like that, and we'll be rolling those out after the State of the State tomorrow. But I would welcome that. I'll meet with teachers here in the district in Gwinnett. They come to the Capitol, wherever that is. I encourage that because I'm asking questions as they reach out to me in confidence to see what issues they've got in each school, as you do in Shiloh. The challenges that Shiloh has and the challenges that my alumni Central Gwinnett have are two totally different things. The same thing if you move to other parts of the county. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can about our school system in any kind of forum like that where folks feel safe. I would welcome it and would be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may take just 3 more minutes of your time. I wanted to stress a point that me and Toyasha had spoken about. My students are not your type of children. All of you guys are here present. My students have their parents working tonight. My students are most likely working as well. So they cannot attend these type of meetings and be the voice. I do want to reiterate, I know we made a point to talk about points for assistant principals. I do want to make a suggestion. We might need to suspend ALP for a moment. So for those who don't know, that is the Aspiring Leadership Program. That is what's required to be an AP in Gwinnett County. There are people that are fully qualified that just haven't gone through that program that could be your APs. That could be a very easy solution to hire those 3 missing APs that we desperately need. So I do want to reiterate, is it possible to take a look at doing that panel, hiring these missing APs that we desperately do need?
Thank you for that.
Gentleman right here.
My name is Bobby Blackford. I'm actually a father of 5, 2 are bonus children, who's autistic and nonverbal. So we've got our own challenges there in our house. My daughter graduated from Mountain View last year and is at Georgia State. I'm also a Gwinnett County Public School bus driver. I drive special needs. I've done reg ed and I've done special needs. Special needs is where I'm at. They got issues, I know they got issues, I can handle it. Reg ed is our Archer cluster, drove in Mountain clusters. Special needs, drove in Lanier, North Gwinnett, and now currently in Mountain View, Mill Creek. Talk about the budget. Wow, $750 million. $750 million to Kingsman of Oakland. Wow, that's good. Spends a lot of tax dollars. I make $20,000 a year. Interesting. But let's go to this part. Discipline on a school bus. There's a 7-step process we must go through before it gets issued to the school. Who does nothing about it? I drove with a colleague who the student was in one school for half the year. They had a book on them. Transferred to another school. Started working on a book. This was a kindergarten. Stabbing kids with pencils, pouring water on them, so forth, so on. Wrote them up 9 different times. The kids finally said, oh, why is he still riding the bus? I've done everything I can do. This wasn't me. Have your parents call. Until the parents started calling, nothing was done. He was finally taken off the bus with 10 days left of school. Think how that affected the psychology of those children on that bus. When I drove reg ed, I'd have 72 kids. And I could point out 4 or 5 of them that I knew had problems. But mom and dad didn't want to address it. Okay? With special needs, they don't tell us everything. So a lot of that stuff we've got to figure out on our own. And for our job and what we have to do to get these children to and from school, yeah, $1,000 bonus last December, thanks. After taxes and whatnot, all right, thanks. Feel appreciated. And I'm not a teacher, so I may be fired this week, but I don't care. What my supervisor says, I say what people think. And a lot of us are tired of it, especially the discipline. I had my middle schooler text me, Dad, why are you throwing the eggs on the bus? I don't know why. Why is someone playing sword fight with a broom? I don't know why. I finally went to that driver and I said, what's going on? I said, I'm a parent 24/7. But when you can't handle the students on this bus for whatever reason, and her answer was, I write them up and they do nothing about it. Because these schools do not want a black eye on their record. And that's not safe. That is, y'all not concerned. Okay, yeah, I drive and I go down to Oakland and Windholt and y'all put up these double doors. Y'all don't want it to be a school to jail situation. What do you think the kids are feeling? When they walk in, door opens, door closes, they get buzzed in. If y'all not been to Gwinnett County Jail, that's the same thing there. So you're creating that mentality. I've driven Give East. And if I gave my opinion to that student without cussing or whatever else, all they got to do is say to the administrator in the building that whatever they want to make up, I cussed at them, I called them names or whatever else, I'd immediately pull it off. So we're taking the work of these children over an adult. What does that say? I get it. Discipline starts at home. I'm telling you, these kids, they end up to give, there is no discipline. The parents don't care. I've called parents before, I'm disciplined. And nothing happens. But now, I'm a special needs driver, now I've got to carry these kids to the alternative schools, where they're allowed to disrespect me or the other drivers. But then they go in the building, they can say whatever they want, we're pulled off. I've seen fights happen in the bus lanes of Give, and other schools right now. SOROs told they can't touch the kids. They're like, what? Back in my day, you've been body slammed. You know? Can't do that now. So the problem is, something has got to be done. Because you're not just going to lose teachers. You're going to lose bus drivers. You're going to lose bus drivers monitors. It starts at the bottom. I thought the custodians was the bottom of the total pole. But we had a bus driver almost 10 years now. I think we're below them. But we have to do a lot to get your children to and from school. And just in my own car, I'd be held to a higher standard if I get pulled over. So the board needs to look at the whole system, not just in the school. Not just in the school. Because like I said, it starts at home. My kids act up, even on my bus. It's yes sir, no sir. They go, yeah. And whether they do it at home or not, I don't care.
That's right.
You're on my bus.
Amen.
You're my world.
That's right.
I operate.
That's right.
But until we get these parents involved, it doesn't matter. Well, it's a waste.
What I personally believe as a parent with 4 kids in Gwinnett County Public Schools, and they also ride the bus too, okay? So we don't take them to school every day. They do get on the bus. I think that there actually needs to be more interaction between parents and teachers. The parents can find out what the teachers need from their students, from their children, from the parents' children. And I think that one of the best ways to orchestrate that, to make sure that happens, is that there needs to be an organization that can foster that kind of a relationship. And I think that probably a parent-teacher-student organization would be the best bet. I know there's a couple of schools in the district that have a PTSO. I don't believe there's a countywide PTSO presently. But I would bet that we need desperately a countywide PTSO to help organize and orchestrate and communicate between parents and teachers and act as mediators. I think that's the direction we really need to go in to kind of counterbalance this whole thing, to help get parents more involved and to get teachers the assistance they so desperately need.
Is there any way of looking at expanding the Give Centers when Governor Kemp addresses this? Because we have kids that just can't function in a normal class setting, but they do well in the Give Center from talking to a couple of the teachers there. And one kid even told the teacher he was on a temporary at the Give Center. He said, if I have to go back to my normal school, I'm going to start a fight again so I get kicked out and come back here. And she goes, you don't have to do that. So I think there's a very big need for this. But the bathroom policies, y'all, I am stuck on that one. There needs to be something taking place to get these bathrooms and buses under control.
I know the one thing I always found interesting about the Give Center, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, they have uniforms. They thought they had some sort of strict dress code. They also have a very intensive discipline policy at the Give Center. And it was talked about in the board meetings, I want to say it was October, November, about the success of the Give Center. People gave stories about how successful it is. If we're having so much success in a school that has uniforms and strict discipline standards, why are we not creating 144 Give Centers and just calling every one of our schools a Give Center? If we have realized that the kids who are underperforming, having issues, need to be put into a strict environment that is well controlled, and we're getting success from that, I'm no genius, but this seems like a pretty simple solution. I know, Karen, you know I'm not a genius either. I'm kidding. Now, I want to get you a microphone. And I think I made a note when somebody else was speaking earlier. We have an AKS, which is our academic knowledge and skills. And those are standards for educational progress. But we don't seem to hold the same standards when it comes to behavior, discipline, respect. I had a teacher who I will not name told me today he had multiple students in the bathroom. He had to herd out to get them back to class. And I hope I'll be forgiven for saying this in a church. But what they told him was, go away, you fat-ass white boy. Should students be able to talk to a teacher like that? No, it should never happen. But we've let that happen, and we've called it cultural differences. We've called it any number of things other than what it really is. From 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., those students are no better than employees at a job. They are employees of our school system, and as such, we should hold them all to an equal set of standards, regardless of race, creed, color, culture. We expect and demand a certain standard out of these children, all of the children, including mine who's sitting in the second row. And if he doesn't perform, and the teacher calls, he knows. Forget the teacher, dad's gonna handle that twice as hard. But if we don't start treating these kids all the same equally, firmly, fairly, they'll never know what to do once they turn 18 and an employer says, oh, hey, by the way, tuck your shirt in, be here at 9 o'clock, and if you're not, you don't get paid. But we've started playing this cultural diversity and difference game where we don't care if somebody cusses at a teacher, we don't do this because that's their background, that's their home. No. You guys are the boss, and you have 180,000 employees that you can fire at will as far as we're concerned, or you can teach them how to follow the rules. That's right. And if they follow the rules, a lot of this mess goes away. So if we start being more demanding in our standards, just like we are with the AKS and those academic standards, if we can apply the same idea to discipline and safety, I think you'd see a lot of this mess go away. Just my opinion. I know there's a contract renewal coming up shortly for the guy who runs the thing. Frankly, if we're still having these talks in 60 days, that contract needs to disappear. Because if we're having the same talks for 18 months and seeing no progress, there is no reason to re-employ the problem.
Getting back to, of course, my presentation earlier was on all these technological solutions that we can use, and yes, alarms on doors also to indicate that someone's exited when they shouldn't have would be a great idea. The secure system does actually track that as well, and I'm not certain. Maybe if Dr. Tevin could tell us, but and maybe this is something we should probably just talk offline about actually. But I have questions about if there's a security operations center central to Gwinnett County Public Schools that the SROs oversee, and if they have real-time access to monitor all the video in all the schools and all the doors, or any doors. I know that several there are doors that have reader access in those as well. If there's any improvements that can be made in those areas as well. But actively monitoring bathrooms, I mean, it's potty business, okay? It's unfortunate that we have to do that. But they do need to be monitored because the kids know, all the students know, that's a space where they can go that they will not be observed. So there has to be some means, and let's say, I've had people say to me before, well, we need bathroom attendants, like in a hotel or in a fancy restaurant, you know. Can you imagine going to a public school and having someone there with a nice tuxedo on and a towel, which toilet, sir? You know, if you have 5 bathrooms in the school, you'd have to have 10 attendants. That'd be costly, and it's just unreasonable. So there's got to be a different way to be able to monitor those bathrooms, aside from having someone have to go in every time they hear a ruckus, too. The SROs, as part of their regular patrols, should be patrolling the bathrooms, you know, if they're appropriate gender, and should also be patrolling the stairwells and hallways, of course, and checking the doors to make certain they're locked. There should only be 1 point of ingress, or 1 or 2 points of ingress, multiple points of emergency egress in the building as well, for fire drill, fire code, and for active shooter situations. But yeah, we have to monitor those bathrooms now. So my recommendations, I think, still stand. There needs to be cameras offset, but there also needs to be doors on the bathrooms, and they need to have card reader access. Make the kids responsible for something other than just their grades. They need to feel like they're a part of the community by having that student ID. You know, I remember when I got my driver's license, I thought, oh, well, I'm part of the community now. Having a student ID that gives them access to certain spaces gives them a feeling of privilege that, oh, I can access this space, I can access that space. And the great thing with a secure system is that you can actually remove access specific to that credential, to that student. You don't have to just blanket give everyone access to everything. You can narrow it down to the student what they can and cannot access and what times they can access those spaces as well.
But how does that control the drugs? Just because they have an access card and I can't see a school system denying access to a kid in a restroom. That will start a crap storm.
Exactly.
No pun intended.
No. No, that's totally,
That's
you're totally correct about that. What would need to happen is you have to have policies designed around the credential as well in order to affect the best outcome and investigations. Okay, so if someone, for example, goes to the bathroom and in the women's bathroom and drops drugs in the tampon disposal unit or whatever, and texts someone to come to pick them up, right? Well, if there's an investigation done, they'll know who accessed that space. They'll have the camera footage, and they'll have the logged-in timestamp from the credential that accessed it. And if it's a different, they'll see it on camera, and then there'll be a different policy violation on top of that. So you have extra means of enforcing discipline by using those security credentials.
Hi, my name is Cooper Smith, and I'm in the 4th grade, and I wanted to come up here to speak about what is going on in schools. So from what I've heard from everyone speaking in this room is that there are drugs, fights, and weapons in school grounds. Well, I'm in 4th grade, and some of these kids are much older than me. And somehow I know that you're not supposed to bring drugs, weapons, or fights on school grounds. And people who are in like 6th or 7th grade apparently think that's fine. That doesn't make sense. Did they ignore everything? Or are they just having a bad home?
One of the things, and this is very interesting, I actually want to piggyback off of what you just said. There's actually a pilot program. This is something the community did at Starling Elementary School. There was a nonprofit that is a leadership nonprofit which hones in on Taekwondo and self-discipline and anti-drugs. So I guess the philosophy is, if you're self-disciplined, understand yourself, and have confidence, you're likely to not want to use drugs, start fights, do all these things. So the community brought in this program. The program also empowered a lot of and a parent engagement. And all the parents of the children that participated in this program were engaged. They participated with the program. The kids came out chopping boards, doing taekwondo, and built their own self-discipline, right? They knew what was wrong, just like what you said, Cooper, right? Because the part of the reason why they brought this in is because some of our children were getting exposed to vaping very early on in elementary school.
Yes.
Yes, so even you probably saw it in a bathroom, right? So, but he's smart, he's very good. So they were getting exposed to this because their older brothers and sisters were probably doing this, and then they thought it was cool to bring it to school and do all those types of things, right? Unfortunately, it's very difficult to control some, just like Mr. Ross said, it's very difficult to control some of these things coming in, right? And how do we manage through that? So, and I'm using this as an example because Cooper, you were very smart.
Thank you.
And these kids that were coming out of this program, they're coming out learning how to be leaders in their own right, also that self-discipline. I say all this to say because our community took that effort, okay? Some of these kids were on free and reduced lunch. They got the program for free. Our school hosted it, and it was a nonprofit that decided to do this, right? And it took a community effort to help empower that. So, like the young ladies that spoke earlier, like how do we all kind of work together to make these things happen? In my district, and let me just say this. So as a school board member, things I've learned from Dr. Murphy, as she's taught me over time to understand my role, right? And part of my role is to approve a budget that is, something that could actually be carried forth. We are good stewards of our taxpayer money, and understand that our folks like our Senator Clint Dixon, and many others who approved this budget for us, we are showing them that we have been good stewards of this money. It would be ideal to have some of the things like a Give Center would have, or some of the things that many of our other schools have, right? Where they're carrying, many of our Title I schools actually, because they are afforded some additional resources, they perform very well, right? It would be great if we had that at all of our schools, but it comes down to that budget that's given to us, what we approve, and then how we manage how our superintendent manages that money to be divvied out in our schools. So I say all this to say that at a high level, the school board, and Dr. Murphy, stop me at any point if you like, but at a high level, we manage at a high level. So many of those long-term goals that we're trying to hit, which in our strategic plan would be like the managing through discipline, because those things are going to take additional funds in some instances. Those things, to my understanding, are things that will take time, right? Because it impacts it. This is such a dynamic system, and it would take time, resources, education, and things that will help. That we have. It just would take time. But there's some things that we could do locally. And I'm happy, if you are trying to get through some solutions, as a parent, I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to see how they can do some things locally and be able to, help our schools thrive in that aspect. The YMCAs are very active. They're trying to be active in our schools. We have many nonprofits, mentoring programs, and we have tutors. Actually, one thing that partnership with tutors.com in the library. There's, certain things that some people can't get to the library, right? So we try to see what we can do at school. So there's a lot of things as a community that we can do, and I'm happy as a parent to help with any of those types of things to make, to help improve our schools as community members. However, at a high level, Senator Dixon, the money would be great. We appreciate you with those recommended budgets, that what's coming through now, especially helping with the safety and security of our students. We appreciate that look, that understanding that you all have given us, and saying, yes, we do care about our schools. And I'm sure many others who have seen the recommended budget are very, very happy, and that you and the Gwinnett delegation and others are taking strides to help us. So thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
I think there needs to be an effort from the board members, the various board members, because I'm assuming that's something in your district. When you've got a successful program like that, we need to have a website, someplace where, okay, that was your district and this worked really well here. We want to drop it on this website and offer some idea like that. I think you and I talked about that earlier.
Our community members,
Yeah, just put it out there, say, here's what we did, it was great, and then let us in our area go look how to figure out how to do that. I just wanted to say real quick, it is 8:50. I think we have overextended our welcome. So at this point, I really wanted to thank every single person who showed up tonight, our board members, our senator, our staff, our parents, the 10-year-old who keeps walking out the back door. Thank you for coming. This was important for Karen to set up because we did not get our town hall, and she put all the work into setting this up and did all the invites, hired everybody, so please thank her. This was an effort to get it together, and with the plane landing on 985, we still had a nice turnout. People got here. So this isn't over by any stretch of the imagination. We want to take all this information. I'm glad there were board members here who heard it and staff who heard it. We were going to compile it, but hopefully y'all can just take it back since you're here. We all want the same thing. We all have different ideas on how to get there, and we've got to figure out a way that works for everyone. Compromise is like a teeter-totter, and we need to try to figure out how to level this out. So one side's going to have to bend, the other side's going to have to bend, and we can eventually get to the middle where nobody's happy, but nobody's unhappy. The goal is the kids, and I hope everybody in here understands that. There's some bad blood with some people in this community, but the whole goal is the kids. And as long as we stay focused on that, I think we can eventually get to where we need to be.
My younger two are in elementary school right now. I am not having to deal with it now. But just like other lovely people in the room have said, this is my community. These are our people. These are our youth and our children. We have to come together and fight. I don't care what political party you are. I don't care what color your skin is. I could care less if you like tide over game. But you have to help. We all have to help. This is not a one-person thing. This is a whole community thing. And that senator on the stage and other senators in Gwinnett have probably heard from me more than they would like to. I have not only been blowing up the school board, but I have been blowing up the senators and the congressmen and anybody else. But at the end of the day, we all have to come together. And if any teachers are scared to talk, I'm not. Look me up. I'll talk for you.